Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are going to start with the topic of amendability of the fundamental rights and the doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution. The doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution is one of the most conceptual topic, and it's the most important decision that the Supreme Court so far has made relating to the basic structure of the Constitution. Now, we know what is this amendability of the fundamental rights. Amendability of the fundamental rights means, are the fundamental rights subject to amendment by the Parliament? Amendability of the fundamental rights means, can the fundamental rights be amended by the Parliament? And of course, if you see Article 368, it deals with the amendability of the Constitution as a whole. And Article 368 confers the authority on the Parliament to amend the constitutional provisions, including the fundamental rights. And Article 368 Clause 2, it says, it provides the procedure. So, Article 368 Clause 2 says that a constitutional amendment bill can be introduced in either house of the Parliament. A constitutional amendment bill can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. In either of the two houses, it can be introduced. And it shall be passed by both the houses of the Parliament sitting separately, not jointly, but both the houses sitting separately have to pass the constitutional amendment bill by a special majority, which has already been discussed with you. And the special majority means by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting, and by a majority of the total strength of the House that has been discussed, you know very well. Therefore, Article 368 Clause 2 clearly states that the constitutional provisions can be amended by the Parliament by a special majority passage. And after the bill is passed by both the houses of the Parliament, it shall be presented to the President for his assent, and the President shall give his assent to the constitutional amendment bill passed by the Parliament, and thereafter that the constitutional amendment bill becomes a constitutional amendment act. So, this is very clear. Now, what about Article 13 Clause 2? This article that we had discussed in the previous class when we discussed judicial review. Article 13 Clause 2 says, if the state passes any law, the word law as used in Article 13 Clause 2 is very crucial. We are going to discuss what is the meaning of the term law as given under Article 13 Clause 2. That is why I have put the term law in the inverted commas. So, Article 13 Clause 2 says that if the state passes any law that takes away or abridges one or more of the fundamental rights, then such a law shall be unconstitutional and void to the extent of such violation of the fundamental rights. So, Article 13 Clause 2, it deals only with the amendment to the fundamental rights. It does not deal with the amendments to the other provisions of the Constitution. It deals only with the amendments to the fundamental rights. So, if any law is passed by the state to amend the one or more of the fundamental rights, then such a law shall be declared as unconstitutional and void to the extent of such violation of the fundamental rights. So whereas Article 368 Clause 2 says the Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, whereas Article 13 Clause 2 says that the state cannot amend the fundamental rights. If any of the fundamental rights is amended or abridged, then such a law shall be declared as unconstitutional. Does this mean that there is a clash between Article 368 and Article 13 of the Constitution? Or they convey two different meanings? So which is right and how to apply this? Right. Now let us see that the Supreme Court interpretation in this regard. Immediately after the Constitution entered into force in January 1950, many of the state legislatures, the state of Bihar, the state of Madras, the state of Kerala, so likewise many state legislatures, they enacted laws known as the Zamindari Abolition Acts, commonly known as the land reforms. Next is when the 4th Amendment Act, the 16th Amendment Act, etc. were passed subsequently, which also amended the fundamental rights. They were also challenged before the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court in a number of cases, starting from Shankari Prasad to Sajjan Singh, versus State of Rajasthan, 1965. Not just only in these two cases, Shankari Prasad and Sajjan Singh case, but in a number of cases starting from 1951 to 1965, the Supreme Court consistently maintained this kind of interpretation, where the court held under Article 368, the Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution including the fundamental rights. So there was consistency in all these, and thus the First Amendment Act, the Fourth Amendment Act, the 16th Amendment Act, etc., which amended the fundamental rights, were held to be constitutionally valid by the Supreme Court. Right. However, when the 17th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed in 1964, which amended Article 31, the right to property, the fundamental right. When Article 31 was further amended, that the 17th Constitutional Amendment Act and the previous Amendment Acts, they were challenged before the Supreme Court in a case known as Golaknath versus State of Punjab, 1967. Now, if you see the rules of the Supreme Court, a decision of a bench of the Supreme Court can be overruled only by a bench consisting of more number of judges. So, only a larger bench can overrule the decision of a smaller bench. We had seen the Shankari Prasad case was decided by a bench consisting of 5 judges. Subsequent cases were decided by 7 judges, and the Sajjan Singh case was decided by a bench consisting of 9 judges. So because of this, the Golaknath case was decided by a bench consisting of 11 judges, because if the previous decisions of Sajjan Singh case were to be overruled by the Supreme Court, it can be done only by a larger bench. Therefore, a bigger bench was constituted to decide the Golaknath case. Now, in this Golaknath case, the Supreme Court rather interpreted the constitutional provisions in a very restricted manner. In 1950, when the Constitution entered into force, the title of Article 368 was procedure to amend the constitution. Remember that each part of the constitution has a title, and the title that was given in the original constitution to article 368 was procedure to amend the constitution. In the original constitution, article 368 did not explicitly state that the parliament enjoyed the power to amend the constitution. It merely stated procedure. And the procedure we have seen earlier, that a constitutional amendment bill can be introduced in either house of the parliament and it should be passed by a special majority. And by giving a very narrow interpretation to the title of article 368, the Supreme Court in the Golaknath case, it held that under the constitution, the parliament enjoyed only one type of legislative power called ordinary legislative power. And the Supreme Court in the Golaknath case refused to accept that the parliament enjoyed constituent legislative power. It rejected the earlier stand of the Supreme Court, the earlier stand of the other benches of the Supreme Court, that the parliament enjoyed two types of legislative powers, but it held that the parliament enjoyed only one type of legislative powers. And it stated, look at article 368, it only states about the procedure. It doesn't confer the right on the parliament to amend the constitution. Therefore, that there was mere procedure but no power to amend the constitution, therefore no constituent legislative power. As a result of this, in the Golaknath case, the Supreme Court stated, therefore, any enactment made by the parliament would be only in exercise of its ordinary legislative power, and thus it will be attracted under article 13 clause 2, and therefore that the parliament cannot amend the constitution including the fundamental rights. The court stated the fundamental rights cannot be amended because that under article 13 clause 2 such a law will be unconstitutional and void. And when the Supreme Court was asked then how the fundamental rights can be amended, the Supreme Court stated you can amend the fundamental rights and the constitution only by reconstituting the dissolved constituent assembly. You bring back the dissolved constituent assembly and only the constituent assembly can amend the constitution including the fundamental rights. But by the time in 1967, when the Supreme Court made this decision, half of the members of the Constituent Assembly had already left for their heavenly abode. That to reconstitute the Constituent Assembly was not possible. Then does it mean that the Parliament cannot amend or the fundamental rights cannot be amended? And further, the Supreme Court in the Golaknath case, it also stated that the fundamental rights had been given a transcendental position or overriding position. That the fundamental rights had been given a transcendental or overriding position where the fundamental rights can override all other provisions of the Constitution. They had been given a superior position under the Constitution. And as a result of this, the Supreme Court in the Golaknath case stated, no authority functioning under the Constitution, including the Parliament, can amend the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights were beyond the amending power of the Parliament. The fundamental rights are more permanent, they cannot be amended. So if this narrow interpretation is taken as the final decision, then it means that the Constitution in course of time will become a legal dinosaur because the society is constantly evolving. Changes are taking place in the society every day. And if the constitutional provisions do not keep pace with the changes in the environment, in course of time there will be a lag behind the developments in the society and the constitutional provisions, and thus that the constitution will not be able to serve the society. The constitution would become outdated, redundant, a legal dinosaur, and thus it will not be able to serve the purpose for which it had been enacted. It was a very retrograde, backward-looking decision of the Supreme Court. How can you bring back the dissolved Constituent Assembly? If it has to be brought today, no member of the Constituent Assembly is alive today. So it was a very, very backward-looking, retrograde decision of the Supreme Court. As a result of this decision in the Golaknath case, the Parliament responded to this decision of the Supreme Court by enacting the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1971. So the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act was made by the Parliament in 1971. And the 24th Amendment Act brought certain changes in the Constitution. The first change is it amended the title of Article 368. Now, today, what is the title of Article 368? How does the title of Article 368 read today? It says, power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution. Power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution and the procedure therefore. The power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution and the procedure therefore. Originally, the title read Procedure to amend the Constitution. So, the procedure to amend the Constitution made it very clear that the Parliament also enjoyed the power to amend the Constitution. If the constitutional makers did not want the Parliament to amend the Constitution, why should they include the procedure? The very fact the procedure to amend the Constitution was given in great details clearly indicated that the constitutional makers expected the Parliament to amend the Constitution if need be. So what was earlier implicit under Article 368 had been made explicit by the Parliament under the 24th Amendment Act. So the Parliament gave itself the power to amend any part of the Constitution by amending the title of Article 368. Then second, that it added Article 13 Clause 4. So Clause 4 was added by the Parliament under the 24th Amendment Act, and the Article 13 Clause 4 says that nothing in Article 13 or nothing in the expression law. The crucial word in Article 13 Clause 2, as I told you earlier, was the expression law. What is the meaning of expression law? That's very important. So, Article 13 Clause 4 says that nothing in Article 13 will include a constitutional amendment made under Article 368. So, Article 13 Clause 4 says nothing in Article 13 shall include a constitutional amendment made under Article 368. Or in other words, Article 13 Clause 4, what it says is the expression law as found in Article 13 Clause 2 will not include a constitutional amendment. The expression law as found in Article 13 Clause 2 includes statutory laws, ordinances, rules, regulations, etc. But the expression law as found in Article 13 Clause 2 does not include a constitutional amendment, and that is what was made clear under Article 13, Clause 4 of the Constitution. And the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act was challenged before the Supreme Court in a case known as Keshavananda Bharati. Versus State of Kerala, 1973. So the 24th Amendment Act was challenged before the Supreme Court in the Keshavananda Bharati case. Since the Golaknath case was decided by a bench consisting of 11 judges, the Keshavananda Bharati case was decided by a bench consisting of 13 judges.